I'm Sherry.
I'm Rachel.
I'm Kim. We're the Spooky Hoochies, and this is Soul Sessions. We are a trio of soul sisters who get together every weekend over the phone to discuss our favorite paranormal cases and give you, the listener, the opportunity, if you so choose, to eavesdrop on that conversation. Spend the night with the Spooky Hoochies.
Tonight, we're taking you back to the quiet town of West Pittston, Pennsylvania, where the Smurl family claimed their home was anything but peaceful. For over a decade, they reported chilling activity, shadows that moved, foul smells that had no source, scratches that appeared out of nowhere, and even violent physical attacks. Their case became so notorious that famed paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren stepped in, declaring their house infested with a demon. But was it truly the work of something supernatural, or was there another explanation? Tonight, we're diving into one of the most disturbing and debated hauntings in modern American history, the Smurl family house.
All right. So basically, I don't know what everybody's research is on the Smurl family. And I just want to start this off by saying the Smurl family is actually my introduction to the paranormal, like, as a major interest. Anyway, that was the first time I'd ever watched, like, I don't want to say a horror movie, because I wouldn't really consider those horror movies.
Right.
Yeah, Rachel's the horror buff. Would you consider, like, paranormal entity stuff horror movies?
It's a subgenre, but I wouldn't consider that's more of a, in my opinion, was a docudrama.
Yeah.
I much rather would have that been my introduction to quote unquote horror movies than what mine was with The Exorcist, but that's a whole nother story.
I think that's how it gets roped into being a horror movie, though, is the fact that so many people don't believe in it, so it gives them that fear factor.
True.
Well, it does. It plays into the fictional fantasy, and Hollywood enters, and...
See, but you say that is the fear factor. For me, the reality... So, I would lump it in with horror, because for me, the ones that scare me the most are the ones that I believe are true life, or truer to life, even with The Exorcist, believing that possession is real, I don't believe the theatrics of what took place, but so to me, that's what scares me more, is that it is real.
Right.
That's me.
But to some people, it's not. It's the fact of, like, it plays into their psyche, and it has that psychological effect. Where for me, like, growing up, I've always been told, like, I shouldn't fear the things that I can't see, the supernaturals or whatever. The things that I should fear are the things that walk beside us every day.
So it's interesting because that's exactly kind of where your introduction started, and where my research, before you even wrote your introduction, started to take me. So it's interesting that that's how this conversation has gone organically. So, Rachel, will you read your thing that you wrote? Do you have it?
Oh my goodness. I have to pull it up.
I looked up, some of my research was done from the Times Leader. And the Times Leader is the news media that covered the Smurl family and their community back in the 80s. So this is their archive site that I've pulled this information from, and it's from interviews that had taken place back then.
Okay, I found it.
All right, Rachel, go ahead.
In light of the new movie The Conjuring, Last Rites, we've decided to bring to you the real story of the family that the movie is based on. This is the story of the Smurl family and the hell that they endured for over 10 years. In August of 1973, Jack and Janet Smurl, along with their daughters, Dawn and Heather, and Jack's parents, John and Mary, moved to 330 Chase Street in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. The family had lost their previous home in Wilkes-Barre the year prior to flooding from Hurricane Agnes. The home was what you would call a fixer-upper, and the Smurls put all of their savings in the necessary repairs the home needed. The paranormal activity initially was mild and could be easily dismissed as other activity in the home. Mysterious stains appeared on the wall and new carpet that no matter how many times they were cleaned or walls painted over, they would always reappear. Tools that were being used for the renovations of the house would disappear only to reappear in odd places. In June of 1974, a TV burst into flames in spite of being unplugged. By 1975, the children were reporting that they were seeing shadowy figures that resembled a human but transparent. Odors that smelled of rotting meat filled the kitchen and then disappeared 10 minutes later. The family would hear footsteps in the attic, only to find no source of the noise. Even the neighbors reported that they heard strange noises at night at a time where the Smurls were all asleep. 1977 was an eventful year for the Smurl family, both good and bad. Shannon and Karen, twin girls, were born in January. In March, Mary had a heart attack and was hospitalized for nearly 2 weeks. During that time, unplugged radios in the living room blared static at 2 a.m., waking the family. Cold spots, temperatures as low as 45 degrees began to appear. In 1978, the activity continued to intensify. At one point, Janet was in the basement and swore she heard Mary calling her name. It turned out Mary was at the grocery store at the exact same time. A month later, Mary heard Jack and Janet fighting and using profane language that they had never used. Both Jack and Janet were asleep. Neighbors continued to hear moans and screams coming from the home. When they called to see if the family was home, they were not. As the years passed, the activity became more and more intense and violent. In 1985, the family dog Simon was thrown against the wall. Dawn was pushed down the stairs, breaking her ankle. A chandelier fell in the dining room, cutting Heather and requiring 3 stitches. In July of 1985, Janet was levitated 6 feet off of the bed and thrown across the room in the middle of the night. The next month, Jack claimed a succubus raped him while he was watching a baseball game. In September, Janet too was molested in her bed. After years of torment and absolutely no help from their local parish, the Smurls contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren in January of 1986. Within days, the Warrens arrived at the Smurl home. Immediately, Lorraine, who was a clairvoyant, stated that there were 4 different entities in the home. One was an elderly woman, harmless, possibly a former resident who died in the 1930s. Another was a girl, aged 15 to 20, potentially violent, linked to a death in the 1920s. A third was a man, aged 40 to 50, who suffered and died in the home in the early 1900s. And the 4th entity was a demon, described as a horned entity controlling the other spirits to destroy the family. The Warrens arranged for Father Robert F. McKenna to perform the first of 3 exorcisms. This only intensified the activity that the family experienced. The subsequent 2 exorcisms gave temporary relief, but the evil would eventually return. Desperate for help from the church, the Smurl family decided that they would try to force the church to help them by going public with their story. Ultimately, the only reaction that they got was a prayer vigil held by fellow parishioners outside of their home. A few priests came to investigate, but the demon stayed hidden and no evidence was found. The Smurls then decided to sign a book deal with the Warrens. They wrote a book about their experiences titled Haunted, the One Family's Nightmare. The book was published November 15th of 1986. Exhausted and defeated, the family decided to move back to Wilkes-Barre in August of 1987. Unfortunately, what they feared would happen did. The evil followed them to their new home. A man who was studying to be a priest read the book and compelled the Catholic Church to sanction an exorcism in 1989. Once the exorcism was completed, the activity stopped. The Smurl family experienced evil for more than a decade. They endured relentless attacks from a demon who was determined to destroy the family and the faith that it was built on. While it was almost successful, in the end, good prevailed over evil.
So that is almost exactly how the movie portrayed it that I watched. There was a couple things in there. I mean, now that I'm older, in hindsight, there was a couple things in there that they didn't include in the made-for-TV movie just for violence and content, I'm sure. Because the 80s are way different than they are now. So
yeah, but I was kind of shocked because, ironically, before we even discussed doing this, I was scrolling through my YouTube and it came up, and I watched it actually not too long ago.
Yeah,
like a couple weeks ago, and I was kind of shocked for the time frame that it was made in, that they actually showed his rape.
Yeah.
I mean, that was.
But I think they did it because it was a man versus a woman.
Yeah, because I don't think hers was included.
No, it wasn't. So, couple things in my notes that I pulled from the articles from the time that this was happening. The dog, just as a side note, wasn't a little tiny dog. It was a 75-pound German Shepherd.
Yes.
There was also a claim that it bit Jack's ear. There were also claims of the bed shaking, pig grunts. and a horrible stench. Now, these two things right there, pig grunts and horrible stench, I bring those up because I'm a huge fan, always have been, of PRS, regardless of Ryan's difficulties. Everybody's human. He seemed to get a lot of those claims in some of their cases.
You know what's ironic about that
is that
he had ties to Lorraine.
Yes, he was very heavily involved with the Warrens, so much so that he's actually going through their stuff, getting ready to hand over everything to Matt Rife, and I forget his name. So I thought that was an interesting tidbit. The thing that you brought up with Jack and the sexual assault that was portrayed on TV also happened to his wife. However, that was not the only occasion. There were multiple occasions that he had reported being sexually assaulted by this entity.
That in itself, I mean, to me, how many men report a human raping them?
Right.
Because of shame. I mean, I just, of all things he could claim,
yeah,
you know, to me, that makes it, that in itself makes some credibility to the story.
And it wasn't just the scary part about it. Yeah, that when they moved to a new home, it seemed to follow them. Didn't go away till they had the exorcism. But that wasn't the only place that it followed them. They tried to get away from this thing a lot. It would follow them camping. It would follow them on vacations. It would follow I don't know if it was Jack or Janet's parents. I think it was Jack's parents that had the duplex.
Lived with him? It was his parents.
Yeah. So it would follow them as well. So, I mean, the whole case, we'll get to it, I guess. Is it really happening, or is it a collective mass hysteria? Because you have the Warrens who come in, and even in your research, you said it out loud, she immediately claimed there were 4 entities. Now, I understand clairvoyancy and all that other stuff, but to come in guns blazing seems a little, I don't know, gives me pause.
Right, it seems a little far-fetched rather than taking, because to me, I think taking the time to form proper opinions.
Well, I mean, I don't think it was she walked in the door. She did a walkthrough of the house.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't like she walked in and goes, "Oh my God," you know. I mean, she took the time to walk through the house. I mean, if you're clairvoyant and you're truly clairvoyant, if those entities are that strong that they're affecting the family, then my belief is that they know that you're clairvoyant. I don't know if it's like a light bulb that goes over your head kind of thing. You know what I mean? Figuratively, of course, but something alerts them to, this person can hear us, you know?
Yeah.
So.
But that also brings up the point of it makes it easier for entities to avoid as well.
True.
So
but
it kind of makes, I know it sounds crazy, but it kind of makes me wonder what else was there that was avoiding, or was there anything else there?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that, but you got to think of it like this. She's saying that they're being controlled by this demon. Who's to say that other entities didn't tell her that? You know, who's to say? So, I mean, I'm not saying that there's not a question here. But I think that if you truly believe in someone who's clairvoyant, then you've got to think that they're able to gather that information much quicker than you or I could.
Right.
So some of the dissenting opinions that I found at the time, one of them was Paul Kurtz. He's a professor at the State University of New York at Buffalo. He's the chairman for scientific investigation claims of the paranormal, or he was back then. He specifically called out the Warrens and said they were not objective, independent, or impartial investigators. He claimed that they had no credentials in scientific or parapsychological communities. That being said, Ed Warren, I guess his title at the time would have been the director of New England Society for Psychic Research. So, and that his overall opinion of the Smurl case was a hoax, a charade, ghost story, and mishmash.
Who's opinion?
Duet.
Whose opinion?
His name was Paul Kurtz.
Is this the guy that conducted the experiment? Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but I don't think that's him. So I think it's this last guy I'm going to talk about. The second guy I'm going to talk about is Stephen Kaplan. He was the director of Parapsychology Institute of America in New York City. I didn't really see any of his dissenting opinions so much that said anything different than the other ones have said, so he's also said it's a hoax. But this last guy, George Kresge Jr., he's a mentalist known as the Amazing Kreskin. He's investigated over 200 stories like the Smurls, and he claims it's always the kids. I would have agreed with him, except that the claims started while the kids were very young.
Yes.
They started, from what I've seen, if I'm not mistaken, like they had like smaller things, but then the bigger things started happening after the twins were born.
So in August of 1986, Kresge urges scientists to offer free psychiatric and psychological help to the Smurls. And here's my red flag. They refused it.
Yeah, I saw that too.
At that point, Jack became Kresge's primary focus. And to that, the reason is because Jack developed meningitis in his 20s. On top of that, he had surgery to remove water from his brain in 83. What is that, hydrocephalus?
Yes.
So let's real quick talk about some of the side effects of meningitis. Having hearing and vision loss, seizures, balance issues, memory issues, fatigue, and cognitive disabilities. So for hydrocephalus, gait abnormality, balance issues, vision disturbance, memory loss, speech issues, headaches, sleep disturbances. And the new tenants, here's the other thing, the new tenants of the house have 0 claims.
Okay, but I'm going to refute that.
Because it followed them.
It followed them. It wasn't the house that was haunted at that point. It was them. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that to me is not a credible reason to say that it was a hoax, that in itself. Because it obviously was attached to them at that point and not the house. Because, I mean, there's other cases that you could say the same thing about. And I truly believe that it's because at some point it attaches itself to the people in the home rather than the home itself.
So the only thing I found on concurring opinions outside of the family and the Warrens was a claim that Jack made that 30 or more people, neighbors, friends, family, had experienced the activity. But I haven't been able to track any of those claims down, verifying it.
The only things that I found when looking into that was like where neighbors and things of such said that they had never witnessed or seen anything of that sort.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know if you mentioned it, but another known side effect of hydrocephalus and everything is delusions and hallucinations.
So I think what a lot of Kresge was saying was that Jack would have been the prime suspect in this hallucination and kind of making it into a mass hallucination. It sounds a lot like the Amityville Horror.
Let me ask you a question. Let me put this out there. And you're right, because I've heard that before too, and that's actually where I was going earlier. But let me ask you this. Let me play devil's advocate for a moment. Let's just say that he was the prime source of all of this. Have you ever seen where it is shown that you can actually conjure activity by creating an entity, in a sense? So what I'm saying is, okay, he was the source, but he believed it so much that it actually started creating this activity.
Yeah. I mean, could it really be as simple as a side effect from these things that happened to him? It started with, let's just throw something out and start a rumor. let's just say it just started with sleep paralysis,
Right.
and it went from there. So on the other side of that, I did make a note of clergy intervention. There was an unidentified priest that claimed 3 unsuccessful exorcisms with the Smurls. Backed up their claims, but couldn't cleanse the house. The Scranton Diocese said that the Smurls were truthful as of August 20th of 1986. The house was blessed by several priests who reported 0 activity. And then finally in October of 1986 is when they sent the priest that spent 2 nights with them and didn't have any activity. And if I remember right, she was literally pleading with him not to leave.
Right. Well, I think that in that instance, again, that doesn't necessarily, because you know as well as I do, I mean, if you see your enemy coming, you're going to hide.
Right.
So why the other, but again, they're supposedly being controlled, but I was going to say why the other spirits that were there didn't make some kind of verification, make it where the Smurls were believed. Obviously, the demon had the dominant control in the home.
Yeah. Well, Robert Curran, he's the one who wrote the book and that they took the movie from.
Right.
Just a little side note about him. It was really highly ridiculed by critics. Like, they just thought it was utter trash. But turn around in 1991, they made that book into a movie. And it really kind of lay dormant forever. Like, I can remember trying to talk to people about this movie. They had no idea what I was talking about. I think I probably even brought it up to you a couple times. You're like, oh. And it wasn't until I went hunting it down and I rewatched it again a few years ago, I realized that Ed and Lorraine Warren were involved in it. And I think once the Conjuring Universe started, people started digging it up. But just to kind of an update as far as the family goes, Jack passed away in 2017 after a lengthy battle with diabetes. And then Janet is still alive, and she and her daughters reside in West Pittston area per Google. And Karen actually posted the other day. I don't remember exactly when that was.
She's not too happy.
No. A quote from Karen Williams Smurl. For those of you wondering my thoughts on the new Conjuring movie, yes, I am a Conjuring fan, so as a fan, it was good. It was a good horror movie in general. As for the story, of all the talks and meetings we had with the writers, I can't believe they didn't once mention the storyline. Tony and Judy Sparrow were not involved, so the fact that they made it all about them was kind of shocking. I know they were trying to tie 2 stories together, but dear Lord, I mean, literally, their involvement was non-existent. Oh well. They wrapped it up well as a fan, but as a family, I don't know why they wasted our time even talking to us, stressing that they wanted to tell our story accurately and compassionately. That's all I have to say for now. Hollywood is Hollywood, though, right?
Right. Well, I mean, you can't. I would say that the movie that you've been discussing is more accurate, and it probably still was Hollywoodified, for lack of a better word.
Right.
But I think it's probably. I haven't seen the movie yet. I'll be honest. I've taken in what some of my fellow horror movie buffs have told me.
I've heard that a lot, actually.
So he said it was very boring, and I would accept boring if the story was told.
Right.
But obviously, that's not the case from what some right from the mouth of babes, for lack of a better way to say it. I mean, obviously they've not portrayed the story the way it should have been. And Ed and Lorraine are not here anymore to have input at all, and I think that they were more going from an angle of their storylines versus telling the story of the family, but why they chose to speak with the family and then not. Go ahead.
Here's my thing, okay, about that whole thing. Ed claims he had audio recordings of knocking, rapping, dark shadows. I don't have an audio recording of a dark shadow, but whatever. He called it intelligent, powerful, intangible, and very dangerous. If you have that, why not release it to the public? Like, if you want to prove that you are actually a scientist, that there is something really here going on, and you can prove it, why not provide that proof? You know,
Right.
I love the paranormal, and I do believe that there is something, out there, so to speak, but I have always had like this conflict with the Warrens. Ever since I learned about them, 20 years ago when I first started watching PRS, Lorraine was great. I thought she was just another one of the psychics that Ryan would bring in. And then I found out, oh, this isn't just Lorraine. This is Lorraine Warren, and she has a name, and et cetera, et cetera. And that's how I kind of found out about the Warrens all those years ago. But even then, it just didn't seem right. It seemed like a money grab to me.
I think, honestly, it started out that way. And that's why I think that you go back to their beginnings. And I think it's like anybody else. It becomes your job. And therefore, you're no longer searching for the truth, but looking to make a buck. You've got to support your family. I don't think they were money hungry by any means.
They saw an opportunity.
It was a way and a means to make money. I haven't dove into them enough to know what they did prior to, and how their income situation was. But my thought process is it started out genuine, but I don't know that, because if you look at some of their cases, even this one, further out on into their career, if you want to call it that, their involvement as a whole became less and less. Like in this case, they immediately go, yep, you got a demon, let's call a priest in. Where early in their career, it was, let's try to get rid of this, and I think that.
Well, I think on some level, as a order, clergy, what is that a word? Clerical?
Yes.
Clerical order? I can't see how they could perform an exorcism anyway. I think any,
right.
Tom Hobo going in thinking they can exorcise something is just foolish and stupid.
Well, I do know that Ed was a licensed, you want to call it licensed, demonologist.
Okay, and I'm a minister.
And I get that.
But you see my point, right?
Right, but I'm saying in their mind, they were able to do those kind of things, and they didn't resort to calling in the church until they had exhausted everything. But as time went on, it was like, yep, that's what you got. Let's call these people in.
Yeah.
Okay, so you spoke earlier about that you didn't really know much about them, like before or whatever, what they did before.
Yeah.
So I actually found pretty much their timeline. So in 1945, at the age of 17, Ed joined the Navy.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that now.
He was deployed, and he was deployed for 4 months, and then his ship sank. And he came home for his 30-day survivor leave and married Lorraine. And then he went back. After he got out of the military in 1951, he and Lorraine had their daughter, Judy.
Right.
And then he went to art school at Yale.
That explains a lot.
He went to Yale for art school?
Yes.
But
that is what it says.
When you're a starving artist, quite literally, I mean, you see what I'm saying?
Well, maybe if he went to a different school, he wouldn't have been starving. I'm just saying.
Right. It actually says that his interest in the paranormal went beyond his paintings and drawings. Like, that's where his interest in it started, was in art school.
Which is
what he took it
right, where the whole nun thing came into play, at least in the movies.
Right.
So are we going to see Last Rites?
I'll be honest, I'm probably going to wait for it to be put on streaming, just because I'm not going to waste my money with everything I've heard.
Right?
Okay.
The kids, my boys, they want to see it. It's at the drive-in, but I just don't know if it's worth even based off of the reviews and things that I've heard. I don't know if it's even worth $6.
Well, listen, if they show,
I might do the drive-in.
they might have a double feature. You could get your money out of it. I'm just saying.
They
They
were
don't.
showing it with Jaws. They put Jaws back out.
No, they don't do that anymore.
Oh, bummer. Okay, well, poo. We'll just wait
Yeah,
for the streaming then. So then
yeah.
where do we go from here? Well, I'll tell you what, we've got a couple different ways we could go from here. We could dig in to more of the Warrens cases, and we could go, at the top of my list was Amityville because I saw some parallels with the Smurl family. But we could do Amityville, we could do lesser known cases, which was on my list.
I would like to do some of the lesser known, less, I mean, like this story in reality has been run into the ground.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would like
Amityville
to
has been
figure
run
out.
into the ground.
I would like to figure out, like, if we can find connections between these bigger Ed and Lorraine cases,
Mm-hmm.
because it feels like a lot of them are ending. A lot of them are a lot of the same.
Yeah, I feel the same way. All right, folks. So we want to do this again same time next week?
Sounds like a plan to me.
Works for me.
All right, guys.
All right, talk to you later.
See you later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
If you would like to add to our conversation, or if you know of a lesser known Warren case that you'd like us to follow up on, leave us a comment below. We appreciate that.